Subscribe and tap the bell. Twice a day, we bring you the real words of the Stoics, not paraphrased, not softened. Every school of thought this channel covers: Marcus Aurelius ruling an empire, Epictetus teaching after his own enslavement, Seneca writing letters from Nero's court. All of it traces back to one merchant who lost a ship. His name was Zeno. He came from the town of Citium on Cyprus, and the ancient biographer Diogenes Laertius is the main source for what happened to him next. Zeno was a trader by profession, not a philosopher, until a voyage carrying a cargo of purple dye went down in a storm near the coast of Greece. He survived. His fortune didn't. Diogenes Laertius records that Zeno, now stranded in Athens with nothing, wandered into a bookseller's shop and picked up a copy of Xenophon's Memorabilia, a collection of stories about the life and conversation of Socrates, dead by then for roughly a century. Something in it struck him hard enough that he asked the bookseller where he could find men like the one described in the book. The bookseller pointed out the window at a man walking past, the philosopher Crates, the most famous Cynic teacher in Athens. Zeno followed him. Crates taught a philosophy of radical self-sufficiency through radical shamelessness, owning nothing, needing nothing, and publicly discarding any social convention that implied otherwise. Zeno studied under him for years and absorbed the core of it, that a person's peace shouldn't depend on property, reputation, or comfort. But he apparently couldn't stomach the Cynic's taste for deliberately shocking public behavior as a teaching method. Ancient sources describe him quietly resisting Crates's more theatrical assignments, embarrassed rather than liberated by them. He kept the philosophy's spine and discarded its performance. From there he studied under Stilpo of Megara, then under teachers connected to Plato's academy, absorbing logic and natural philosophy neither the Cynics nor Zeno's own instincts had covered on their own. By around 300 BCE, in his late 30s, he'd assembled his own synthesis: the value of self-sufficiency from the Cynics, the rigor of formal argument from Megara, a theory of nature and the cosmos from the Academy's tradition, and started teaching it publicly, not in a private house, but in a public colonnade in the Athens marketplace known as the Stoa Poikile, the Painted Porch, decorated with murals of Athenian battles. His students came to be known simply as the men from the porch, Stoikoi. Stoics. What survives of Zeno's actual teaching comes mostly in short, quotable fragments rather than complete texts. Since none of his own writing survived intact into the modern era, everything we have passed through later writers quoting or summarizing him. Diogenes Laertius attributes to him the observation that nature gave people 2 ears and 1 mouth so that they might listen twice as much as they speak. He's also credited with the line that it's better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, a preference for a physical stumble, embarrassing but harmless, over a careless word that can't be taken back. Fragmentary as this record is, a consistent temperament comes through, economical with speech, suspicious of display, more interested in what a person actually does under pressure than in what they claim about themselves beforehand. Zeno organized his new school's curriculum around 3 connected parts, a structure later Stoics kept for centuries. Logic came first, training in how to reason correctly and spot a bad argument, since nothing built afterward would hold up on faulty reasoning. Physics came second, by which Zeno meant something closer to a theory of the entire natural order, the idea that the universe operates according to a rational structure he called the logos, and that a person's task is to understand that structure well enough to act in agreement with it rather than against it. Ethics came last, deliberately, because Zeno's view was that you can't reliably know how to live well until the first 2 pieces are in place. Later critics sometimes reduced Stoicism to its ethics alone: endure hardship, control your reactions, and missed that Zeno built the ethics on top of a specific claim about how the universe itself is put together. Zeno reportedly lived with almost none of the wealth his students eventually offered him. He turned down a large gift from Antigonus II, the king of Macedon, according to ancient report, apparently unwilling to let money change the terms on which he taught. He ate simply and dressed for function rather than status, by every surviving account, living, in other words, the philosophy rather than merely lecturing on it, decades before Seneca would be criticized for failing to do the same with his own fortune. The school outlived Zeno by centuries, passed hand to hand through a line of successors who each reshaped it while keeping the porch's name. Cleanthes, a former boxer who reportedly worked nights hauling water to afford his philosophy lessons by day, took over first and held the school together for decades on raw persistence more than natural brilliance, by his own students' account. Chrysippus came after him and did the opposite, a formidably sharp logician who wrote so prolifically that a later saying held that without Chrysippus, the Stoa itself would not have existed, meaning the school's survival past its founding generation depended on him defending it against rival schools' attacks with sheer argumentative firepower. By the time the philosophy reached Rome centuries later, and from there Seneca's court, Epictetus's rented room, and Marcus Aurelius's military tent, it had already been rebuilt twice by men who never met Zeno and were reasoning entirely from what he'd left behind. His death, as Diogenes Laertius tells it, is one of the strangest anecdotes to survive from the ancient world. Zeno was said to be 98 years old, still walking to his own school, when he stumbled leaving it one day and either broke or badly dislocated a finger. He reportedly struck the ground with his hand and quoted a line of verse, "I come, why dost thou call me?" Then walked home and, by the ancient account, ended his own life on the spot, treating the fall as a signal that his time had arrived. Whether the story is literally accurate or philosophical legend built up around a real death is impossible to verify at this distance. Either way, it was recorded and repeated for centuries as the fitting final scene for a man whose entire teaching was about meeting whatever happens with steadiness rather than resistance. Almost everything that follows on this channel, the Emperor's Notebook, the Freed Slave's Handbook, the tutor's letters from a dangerous court, starts from the man who lost a cargo ship, picked up a book about a dead philosopher, and decided to go find out if anyone still taught that way. He built a school under a painted colonnade to make sure someone would. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and the Stoics they trained, straight from the source, twice a day.